Hiya, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today we're going to be doing a project on my Cricut maker using a new medium for me, which is wood, and we're basically going to be using basswood, and that wasn't so easy to get over here in the UK, but I did manage to get some. So as always, do check out the blog post. The link is in the paragraph below this video, and I will put links to products used here. Basically what I did was I found a royalty-free silhouette of world map, and then this image I imported using this upload feature here into the Cricut design space. I then took that map and I duplicated it a couple of times and basically split it up. Now the reason I did it, and then I split it up using the contour feature here. So for example, if you click on something and then on contour you can delete, say, all of that and just leave, say, Australia and New Zealand. And then I did the same for here and here and here, and just broke it up into smaller chunks, because if I try to cut that as one image, unless you've got one of the big mats in strong, you're not going to fit this on a 12 by 12. I then made these pieces here. Basically I took circles and I used the slice feature, and I just kept slicing into it to create these curves. And then I sliced across the top as well and the bottom to get rid of the pointy parts of the circle to create this shape. Then the pieces at the back are basically just a whole A4 sheet of the basswood. I'm not intending to cut those, I'm just put them there to help me with sizing, etc., and to make sure that everything fitted. Now as you can see, the blue, I mean, it's none of this is actually coloured, it's all going to be brown basswood to start with, but as you can see, the blue is not as tall as our brown A4. Now the reason is that when you try to make this as tall as this, it will not cut on a 12 by 12. So again, if you have a larger mat in the strong, then you could make that be the same size. However, I took the view that it didn't really matter. This is something that probably you're going to frame, so you could easily just frame up to the blue part here, and over that you're going to be gluing all these pieces together, so I figured that would be fine. So next thing I need to do obviously is click make it, and when you do that, first of all it's saying that I've got some that are on bigger mats. We know that that's the brown ones here, but we're not cutting those anyway, so that doesn't matter. But you'll also notice at the moment it's on a 12 by 12. We need to change that because our wood is A4, so I need to change that to A4. That then makes those pieces fit onto the A4 for me. And the same with the blue here. Now the thing that it does do, which is kind of cool, is it goes A4 and it does all of that color in A4. So I think it assumes that if you've done something in the same color, that you are literally going to be cutting it out of the same card or whatever. So it's assuming that all of that will be A4 or whatever size you decide. Okay, so the other thing that I didn't realise was recommended was that you actually mirror your cuts, and I guess that makes sense because you're cutting into it, and I guess doing it that way the cut is going down, so the right side is facing downwards. The other thing that it does say to do is to make sure that your cuts are sufficiently away from the edges, so because you have to tape them. So I am actually going to move this one over, and the same with these, just to move them into the center. This just gives me a little bit extra maneuverability when I'm taping it down, because it suggests that you put your wood onto your mat and then you put a brayer over the top to really get the adhesion, and then you want to make sure that it really is stuck down, so to put painter's tape or some sort of masking tape down. Oh, I didn't know that was there, like that separately. Let's pop him down there, so that you get a really good adhesion going on. And I just want to move these about a little bit just to try and get a better, and I think we can actually move one of these because you can actually move it. So let's move that over to this one here, and that will give us a little bit more space for cutting on this one. And I might even move this one as well because we've got plenty of space on here, so we can make that all in the middle, and that shouldn't be a problem. And it just helps, I think, to be able to move things around a little bit. You can twist it if you need to, and that way we've got it a little bit more centered. And we've got a little one here that we can just pop in there as well. So that gives us that space around the edges just to get the tape in without hopefully interfering with the cut area at all. So that's all good. So we're going to actually start off with these blue bits because I think this is a simpler cut. I've not done this at all. This is literally going to be the first time in front of you guys, so it could be a complete disaster. So I think it would be a good idea to start with a simple cut. So I'm going to click on continue here. It's going to have a little look for my Cricut Maker here. Then we will need to put in what material we're using, and it will then know that we're using the basswood and the thickness. I tried to get like this, the thickness that it suggested on the sort of standard materials rather than making a custom one. So it's going to be this one here, and then it's telling me to load the blade, which I've done, and then we're going to press load matte, etc. So I am now going to go across to the machine itself, so we don't need to see what's going on here. It's literally just going to say press go, and we're going to go along each mat at a time. So I'm going to stop this here and I'm going to go over to the machine. Okay, so the first thing you want to make sure you do is pick out your Cricut knife blade and change that over from the normal cutting blade. So you can see there how I opened up the blade housing, and then carefully, so that you don't cut yourself, just replace that with the knife blade. Okay, so here's my mat. It's a little bit hard to see, but you can see I've just done the tape. I've been a little bit more circumspect top and bottom because I know that that's quite tight, but the sides shouldn't be a problem. So obviously that's going to go in that way. We've mirrored the image on our design space, so fingers crossed this should work. But oh, and the other thing it said to do was to move these little bar things out the way. I don't know if it's completely out the way, but I think it is, so that it doesn't touch the wood because it interferes with, it makes marks on the wood. So fingers crossed I've done this all correctly, and let's get pressing the little Cricut head. It says it's ready to go. Ooh, I'm really nervous because it's like I want it to work so much. So there's our first piece cut. This is obviously the correct side, so we're going to put this the right way up and put it somewhere safe so we know what piece is the right way up, because otherwise that's going to get confusing as well, because there are obviously quite a few similar pieces like this. And so I'm going to try cutting a couple more. Okay, so here are all my pieces cut out. So those are the sort of background, the sort of globe part of it, and then I've cut out these pieces. I finally kind of figured out what I needed to do for this particular basswood, because it's not Cricut basswood. It said it was a particular thickness, but it seemed that it was slightly thicker than what it was saying. So when I did it at think it was 1/32 of an inch basswood, it didn't go through quite. When I then did it at the 1/16 basswood thickness, because you've got those two options, I thought, oh great, it's cutting this brilliantly. And it was only when I finished these pieces and I'd taken a couple off and I suddenly realised that I was actually cutting through the mat. So I'd actually completely cut through the mat. Now, it didn't really matter, it was a trial and error, but it is worth perhaps just, obviously you don't want to have to buy another mat, but I mean it's just got a few bits. I've stuck it at the back and it'll do fine for more pieces like this, but just be aware of that. So what I did with this, and it probably would have been better to test it more thoroughly first, was I actually did it at the 1/32 of an inch basswood, but then you get the option to cut through another time, so you can press your Cricut head, as long as you don't unload the mat or anything, just press the Cricut head. Instead of pressing unload, press the little Cricut head and it will go round again, cutting the same cut. So what I found was I needed to do it once more for this particular thickness, or I think on the more detailed pieces I even did it twice more, just to be sure, because some of these pieces are so small. Some of the bigger pieces you can sometimes pop out. Now that's not ideal, but you know, if it hasn't quite cut in a little bit, you can usually just give it a little press and it will go. But obviously with the smaller pieces you don't want to risk that, so I did tend to just do 2 extra. Now if you're using the Cricut own brand, then you should have no problems with the thickness. If you use, you know, purchase the 1/32 inch thickness basswood, then if you cut it at that, it should go through perfect and you should have no issues. This has only been an issue, and it wasn't really an issue, it was just me needing to work out exactly what I needed to cut it at, was because it wasn't a Cricut brand, so it was just slightly different thickness. You know, it wasn't, as I said, a big deal. As you can see, it's cut out beautifully. So what I really want to do though, just to really make this have a lovely finish, is to go around the edges with a fine piece of sandpaper, or even like a fine nail file if you haven't got sandpaper, but sandpaper is probably best, just to smooth that off, because it will have little sort of grain bits where it's been cut, and it's nice just to take that off and give it just a nice finish to that. So I'm going to do that, and then I also want to paint it. So what I did was I had a little practice on some of the pieces that I'd got, you know, the scrap, and I played around with, because I wanted to do blue for kind of the globy part, the background, which is obviously going to be these A4 sheets, 3 of them, and then you're going to have the globy bit sitting on top. That I wanted to keep in wood, so I'm going to leave that as wood, plain wood. And as I said, then blue for this, so it's like the ocean, and then I wanted probably to just do white for this, but I'm still thinking, do I want white, or does it look nicer having that? I kind of like the white. When you put the white on, I think it kind of pops, and especially if you've got like this in the background, I think that gives it a nice look. But with the blue, you can, I'm hoping you can catch that it's sort of got a kind of mixture. It's sort of bits are dark and bits are lighter. Again, I played around with it, and I did some that was really thin and very watery. Didn't like that. I did it just kind of the plain blue. I'm using this Do Crafts acrylic paints, and it was too strong. But then what I did was I thought, well, I'll do a base of white, so the blue looks just a little bit, because what it was doing was the sort of yellowy colour of the wood was showing through, and it didn't kind of work. So being impatient, because I just wanted to test it, I then immediately went on with the blue after I put the white on, and actually it was a happy accident, because what happened was the blue kind of mixed in with the white and had this kind of effect, and I really liked that for the kind of ocean look. I thought that just looked quite effective. So I need to go around with my sandpaper, so I'm going to find some sandpaper and then we're going to start painting. But I thought I'd show you all the pieces cut out first and just how lovely it is. I have to say it took days because particularly these pieces, one sheet would take at least an hour to cut because it was going around about 14-15 times, and then I did probably another couple extra on top. So I sort of did 1 or 2 sheets at a time, and I mean obviously these were a bit quicker, but still they still took quite a bit of time. I think those took about half an hour each one. It's just because there's so much of it, and this is obviously very detailed, so don't worry if it takes a long time. That is kind of how it's going to be. But as you can see, I think anyway, so far it's definitely looking worth it. It's coming out really well. Okay, so I've just got a fine piece of sandpaper here, and I'm literally just going to gently rub along these edges here just to smooth that down a little. I'm actually not sure which way up these ones go because as I put them down I will be able to tell better. But we just want to make it nice and tidy so that it's just nice and smooth to the touch. And then going to do then the little countries, so I'll put those to one side just to show you one of the countries so we can do that as well. So we just literally very gently, so that any little bits that we need to can come off as well. Like if there's any little sort of like there's like a little loose bit there, we can just smooth that away. Feels a lot nicer. See, just in there was like a little bit that had obviously just not quite cut. Like so. So that's going to be what I'm going to be doing. So I'm just going to do the rest of these large pieces and the countries, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so we've got these pieces now, and I've sort of laid them out in the right order, and then what I did was I marked them on the back so that I would remember what fitted where. So like that obviously doesn't go there because they're very slightly different. So basically on here I've put centre. Then on this one I've put 1L, so first one on the left, second one on the left, third one on the left, etc. And then over here obviously 1R, so that was the right one, etc. So when we separate them later and we're painting them, etc., then I will be able to easily work out what's supposed to go where. But I think you can see already how that's looking really cool, coming together nicely. So we're going to take the right side and the left side, and we're just going to move those out to the side, and we're going to have the centerpiece, and we're going to start on our painting. So what we've got here is I've got my white acrylic paint and I've got the blue acrylic paint. This is just some normal baby blue, but I will put all details as always of the products used. But as I say, it's just normal paint. We're going to put the white on first, but we're going to go then pretty quickly on with the blue because we want that kind of mushed up look. So it will look quite effective, kind of like a scene. So I'm going to take the white. I'm going to water it down just a little bit. That will make it go a bit further, but also it's not quite so heavy. That's better. And then let's paint that on here. And it doesn't really matter if you get it on the mat and it goes underneath, because you're not going to see that bit anyway. That's going to be glued. So we didn't really need too much. And it doesn't need to be perfect coverage because you're going to be putting the blue on top anyway, so it's not like the end of the world. Although you do want to watch your fingers because I just put mine all over that. So I'm deliberately trying to do it sort of higgledy-piggledy brush strokes to give that nice effect. I'm then going to take my blue and I'm actually going to pop it into where the white is. Oh gosh, and all over me. And that will help with the mix, I think, as well. And then we'll just smudge that down a bit. Because what we want is just to blend it in, kind of some bits darker, some bits lighter. And I'm going to put a bit more down on the table. Just to give this kind of nice effect of really like a sea, an ocean. I know oceans aren't really that kind of bright blue, but it's just to give an effect. And it's really tempting to keep going and adding more brush strokes, and I'm trying not to, I just want to add some little darker pieces, but you don't want to sort of mush it in too much because otherwise then you're losing some of the lovely lines. But I'm going to just squidge a little bit of white. I just want to add a tiny, if I can get any out, which is, there we go. Just want to add a tiny bit of white just to give some contrast here. There we go. Took a minute, but we got there. I'm not even sure you guys can see it that well, but see if I can show you. So you've got a bit of texture going on there as well. So I'm going to pop that to one side. There's going to be running out of places to put things, but and then we're going to put the next one down. So I'm going to carry on. I'm going to paint all of these. You've kind of seen how I'm doing that now. And then I'll come back to you when it's all done. Okay, so there it is finished. I think that's come up really well. I like the effect of it being kind of mottled like that, and it's all dry now, so I can move it. Luckily it is marked because I'm just going to pick them up randomly and carefully so that they don't scratch themselves. And then we're going to pop that to one side. I'm going to bring in my little sheet again, and now we're going to get our countries. However, as I did with the background sort of world pieces, the seas, I marked the back of them. Now obviously the other pieces I marked the order that they were going to be laid out in. This I don't need to, it's fairly obvious once you see the big bits and then you can work out where the little ones go. But it's very easy to get them twisted around. Obviously these bigger pieces, the big continents, not so problematic, but I marked those as well. But it's mainly these tiny little bits that are much easier to flip over because they look very similar both way around quite often. So I wanted to be sure to get it all correct, so I just marked them on the back. I thought that was the safest. Now I've got gesso this time. As I said to you before, my acrylic white was running out, so I think this will actually go down really nicely anyway. If it doesn't, I think it will give a good base, and we can always finish off with the acrylic white. I've got enough just to do that, so we'll see how it goes, but I think it should be okay with just this. I'm going to actually pop it to one side on the grey, whereas before I did it on this, but I'm going to try and keep them on this piece to dry. And I'm actually going to put some gloves on this time because I'm going to hold them, and last time it took ages to get the darn stuff off my hands. Now I'm not going to water the gesso too much because it's already pretty sort of liquid compared to acrylic paint there, but it will give a really nice base, I think. So I'm going to just go along and I'm going to paint all these. All of this, you don't need to see me painting every single piece, you can get the idea. Oh, I missed a whole section there. And then I'll come back to you when that's done. Okay, so it took me quite some time, but I finally found a piece of wood that is going to be the right size to be the back. Now this is just like I think like a nice smooth chipboard, but since I'm putting the other wood on top, even though it's going to be in panels, I don't think the lines will show, because by the time we put the other pieces on top, any edges that will be there will be within the frame. So what we want is 3 of these, so we want to pick some nice ones, I guess. That looks a nice one. Yeah, there we go. That works, and as you can see, actually it fits on there really well. What you'll get is obviously that very slight line between each piece, but I think, as I said, once we put the other pieces on, which I have repainted, I decided I didn't like the blue, just quite frankly because it just didn't go with our house, and you know, ultimately it is a piece that's supposed to go on the wall, and the blue was just not working. I changed it from that very bright blue to a more sort of greeny, duck eggy colour, and again it's sort of got that mixed up look. And so then I just basically, all I needed to do is I went on the opposite side, turned it over so it was this side. This was originally a left piece, so when I flipped it, it becomes the right piece. So it was very easy, you didn't have to fiddle around too much. But I think once these are down, that's going to be the top where it's going to be framed to, so you're not going to see these lines anyway. In fact, I doubt you'll see very much of this wood at all. So but you do obviously want some of it. So let's glue these down. So I've got some of this Gorilla wood glue. Not used it before, but I understand it's really good. Apply generously, join and clamp. Yeah, well that's not going to happen, is it? Okay, clamping. So I'll need to find something to hold these. Make sure I'm going right to the edges. Okay. So that's pretty well done, I think. Let's pop him down. And you can see where there was just a few little edges. I'm just tidying those up. And then butting that up against there. And you see where I'm pressing it, it's just seeping out a little bit at the side there. So we're just, I guess this is where you're supposed to clamp it to hold it down. I'm going to hope that just putting that on top will be sufficient. Okay, last piece. I'm actually going to put it on here. Oh, does help if you open the nozzle. Then get our last piece here and pop him in position, making sure not to slide it underneath the last one. Okay. And I'm just making sure it's all correctly positioned. And then I'm going to, once it's actually all correct, I'm just wiping any excess away. See, this one definitely wants to pop up. These ones are not too bad, but this middle one. So once we're happy with the position of it, I'm going to actually get this other piece of wood. Okay, so as you can see, I put a lot of clamps around this, and then I stood it just on a tin so that it kept it off the table. So now fingers crossed when we take these off. Some of these aren't as strong as I would like them to be, but that's all I had. But fingers crossed that it's nicely stuck down. So let's just undo all of these. And I'll keep these for in a bit because I'll need these again. These were difficult to put on because they were just nearly, I had some more of these ones, but they weren't really quite deep enough, so they weren't grabbing on the thread. But hopefully it was still enough to have kept these 3 stuck down, and I hope I haven't stuck the top board to the bottom one. No, that's come away, so that's a good start. Yay, look at that. Oh, that's beautiful. Very happy with that. Look at that, gorgeous. That's going to make a really nice base to our piece here. So the next bit we want is our C, as it were. So let's just put these in position and then we'll glue those down in a second. But let's put them, lay them out first. Okay, so that's snapped. Is it snapped or is it? No, I think it's the wood. That'll be okay. And I'll put that at the top because there's things there. I think once we glue it down, it'll be all right. That's a bit annoying. Worst case, I'll have to cut it again. That's 3. That was 2. It's only just says it, but it is there. And that's 1. Okay. So what we want is to make sure this one's in the middle and then work our way out from there. Okay, so we've got the glue here. I've put those pieces in the right place. And I'm still trying to work out how to share this with you guys because it's an image I imported, I can't quite work out how to make it work. So I am trying so that if you want to make this you can, but at the moment I haven't worked it out. So hopefully by the time this goes up I will have done. But the best place to check that is to actually go across to the blog post. You'll see lots of photos as well, so it's good place to go. But go across to the blog post. If you're on YouTube you'll find the link in the paragraph below, so that's always the best place to go, and then that will show you if there's in the bottom underneath there's the list of products, so in there will be the link to this project if I can get it as a cut file for you. Okay, so here's sort of, I mean I'm only doing it approximately, there's the 2 lines, and make sure it's kind of even top and bottom as well. This line looks a lot worse, but I think once it's stuck down, when you push it down it goes away, but I think it'll be okay. I don't think it matters. So we can just pop that there. Now we have to do what we did before and stick these down with the clamps. So we need to get these in position. Whoops, that's pushing that one around, so let's be careful. That's why I said I wanted to do them all in one go, because it does move them a bit if you're not careful, so we need to make sure they're all lined up correctly. And you know, this obviously I want the lines on this one, so I don't mind a little bit of lines showing. Now this last one we want to make sure we get in because we don't want glue on the edges. Okay, I'm thinking that looks good. So let's just to make sure any little leakagey bits are dealt with, just because I'm putting that other piece of wood on top and I don't want the I tell you what I do want to do first actually is I want to put my tin underneath, so I think that might be easier, and then we're going to put this one on top. I think that'll be okay if we're careful. And then we're going to start clamping. So we're going to start at this end. Okay, so I'm going to carry on clamping. You don't need to see me keep doing this. And then we're going to let this dry again overnight. And then we'll come back and we'll see fingers crossed that it hasn't moved. Okay, so it's actually been a couple of days, so I'm hoping this is all good in here, and I am just going to unclamp everything and check how this is stuck. It didn't need to be a couple of days, by the way, it's just the way it worked out, but I'm just hoping that nothing moved. Of course, this is getting harder now because obviously each layer we add another layer of wood, it makes it obviously quite a bit thicker, so it's getting more difficult to put those clamps on. Okay, so we had a little stickage where the wood that I laid on top, but the glue had sort of leaked through a little bit and it had stuck down. So all I did was I used my craft knife and just got some of the, there was like, because it's like chipboard, it just left like sort of almost like a papery type wood effect there. So I just took my craft knife and just gently scraped any excess off, and then I took a very fine piece of sandpaper and just finished it off, and that seems to be fine. I don't think there's any major problems there. However, it has taught me a lesson that which I had been thinking that I ought to do anyway for the when I put the countries on, is to actually put this down. I'm not going to do all the countries in one go either because I think they'll just start moving. So to put this down on top, because this is less likely to stick because it's obviously shiny. So I think that will be a lot better to do it like so. So let's get my countries now. And what I want to do is position everything, and then I'm going to maybe stick, just very lightly, stick it down with a tape pen. And then I'm going to just stick a little at a time with the actual glue. Okay, so let's get working this out. So we got this one. But that's not going to work, because that needs to be over. I'm looking at the design on my phone, and what it does show me is positions of it compared to the actual cuts here. So I'm just looking to see where it exactly goes, because that then helps me know what actually fits. Okay, yeah, I think I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is take my tape pen, grab country or continent, whatever it is, and just add a little bit of tape to it so that I can then position them and leave them stuck down just using the tape, and then we can gradually stick them down using the glue. I'm going to do the little bits first because I think that'll be easier. And then we'll go for the bigger pieces next. Okay, so I've stuck that down, so I think now what I need to do is stick down just one section. So I think I'm going to do this bit here. Okay, so let's get the adhesive. Okay, so then let's turn this over. Let's put that on there so that we can do some gluing. Now with these I'm going close to the edge but not right to the edge because I don't want it to squelch out. So now Now I've just closed the nozzle so no more glue will come out, and I'm just pushing some adhesive down the bottom here. I'm going to take just a little bit of this off because I think it's just a little bit too much and it's going to squelch. Okay, let's turn this over. That looks about right. And I don't want to do a lot of moving around, because if you move it around too much you're going to make marks with the glue. So then position that not like that. There we go. And then pop that down like so. Actually, we're going to do it that way so that it doesn't stick out the edges. And then I'm going to get my tin. And we get my piece of wood. And this is going to be fun, trying to clamp these with it so wide, but we will give it a go. Okay, so let's leave this to dry. Again, this it does say only like 20 minutes, but I like to really be sure that it's stuck down, so I give it overnight, which means it is going to take a few nights to work our way across, but of course for you guys it's not going to be very long. And what I will do is I won't show you each time I do a country because it's no point, so I will carry on over the next few days and complete sticking these down, and then I will show you when we've done the last one and do the reveal of that. Okay, so I'll be back with you, my time in a few days or so, with you in a couple of seconds. Okay, let's move my little tin. It down a bit and you can see the whole thing. Okay, okie dokie, let's take this off. Oh yeah, that's all good. It's all stuck down lovely and firm. Make sure all the little bits are done as well, that I didn't miss any. But there we go. That is that finished. Obviously I now need to get this framed, but I think that's come out really, really well. So what I will do is I'm going to get that framed. I don't know how long that's going to take because I have a framers in local to me that I'll take it to. So once that's done, I will show that to you. But obviously, as always with videos, it might be a couple of weeks for me, but it'll be like a second for you. So it'll be like 1, 2, boom. So here it is, all finished. Now, apologies for the light. There's not a lot I can do about that. That's reflecting off the glass. Obviously if it's on the wall in normal lighting that's not going to happen, but under these bright lights for the camera it's like super reflecting. What I would suggest you do is make sure you go across to the blog post, because I'll take a load of pictures which I will take in some natural light so that we can get it without those bits on and you can get a really good view of it. You'll find the link to that blog post in the paragraph below this video if you're on YouTube, so it's nice and easy to find. I also have finally figured out how to be able to share this download with you guys on Cricut. As you may or may not know, on my website I do have a section where I have downloads of cards that I've made and projects that I've made that are on the Cricut, so you can download them to save you having to work it out. Definitely go on over to the blog post to take a better look at it. And I will of course put links to all the products used on there, and of course the link to the download as well. So that is it. I mean, this has been a marathon project from my point of view, because I started this just after Christmas last year, but one thing and another meant that it just got delayed. But I think after all that, it has definitely been worth it. From my point of view, I think it's turned out really nicely, and you can definitely make this in a way that suits your decor, your styling. If, as I said, if you don't want to make it in the wood, you could make it in cardstock. So if you didn't have a Cricut maker, which obviously cuts the wood, but you only had a regular Cricut Explore, which I love the Explore, and so therefore you would cut in paper or cardstock, it would look great. And especially if you then framed it, I think framing it in a nice frame really makes a difference to how something finishes off and how it looks. So I hope you've enjoyed making this project with me. As I say, don't forget to go on across to the blog post to look at those photos, and also for the links that we discussed. And that is it for this project. I hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now. Bye.